that you should be familiar with in this slide is the epithelium. Now, the respiratory passages and the conducting portion of the respiratory tract is lined by what type of epithelium?
Stratified.
Okay, pseudostratified.
Columnar.
Okay, pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. So, that is the appearance of the pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Now, why is it called pseudostratified? Not a true stratified. Those are the nuclei. What can you say about the location of the nuclei?
Not basic.
Okay.
Everywhere.
At different levels. So, imparting a stratified-like appearance. However, when we examine individually, all cells in this epithelium are actually connected or attached to the basement membrane and the basal lamina. So that's the name pseudostratified. And then how do you call those structures projecting from the surface?
Cilia.
Cilia. Now, have you discussed in the lecture the 5 types of cells present in the olfactory epithelium?
Yes.
Okay. So we will only mention a few. Importante lang. Most important cellular component of this epithelium are the bipolar neurons, the olfactory neurons. So bipolar because there are 2 processes extending from the main body of the cell. So one of the processes will be going to the apical portion of the epithelium, and then from that process, the cilia will sprout. Okay? So there is a good picture in the Junquera or in the yung Ross, the appearance ng olfactory neuron present in the olfactory epithelium. And then aside from the olfactory neurons, there are also columnar cells which are ciliated. So cilia from the columnar cells and then cilia from the olfactory neurons. And then at the other side of the olfactory neuron, another process will extend from the cell body, and then eventually these processes or the axons will aggregate with each other to form what nerve? The olfactory nerve, cranial nerve number 1. Now, what is the function of our nose aside from the entry of the entrance point of air?
Smell.
Smell. Now, have you discussed in the lecture how the nose senses smell?
Yes.
Okay, through that epithelium. Okay, by chemical reactions which are detected by the cilia of the olfactory neurons, and then through that chemical reaction, an action potential will be generated which will be transmitted to the cell body and then eventually to the axon which will form the olfactory nerve. So you will be able to differentiate the olfactory epithelium from the rest of the respiratory epithelium, because when we examine later, trachea, larynx, the bronchi, same type of epithelium will be seen. However, specific for the olfactory epithelium is the absence of the goblet cells. So when you see a pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium minus the goblet cells, it should be the olfactory epithelium. So associated with the olfactory epithelium is that gland. For orientation of this notation, that's the olfactory epithelium. Underneath the epithelium is a gland. The secretions of this gland will cleanse any chemical that is present in the surface of the olfactory epithelium. So, para yung olfactory epithelium will always be ready to receive new stimulus, which will come as chemicals which are suspended in the air. Actually, yung amoy na ginasense ng nose natin are actually chemicals suspended in the air. So pagdating sa olfactory epithelium, the nature of the chemicals will be gathered by the olfactory neuron, and then it will be transmitted to the olfactory nerve, to the brain, for final interpretation. So the secretions of this gland will continually or will periodically cleanse the surface of the olfactory epithelium. What is the name of that gland? Associated with the olfactory epithelium. Okay, the Bowman's gland. Bowman's. So those are the structures which you should be familiar with in this slide. Olfactory epithelium and then the gland associated with epithelium. Supposedly, after the nose follows the nasopharynx. Kung walang slides sa nasopharynx, we will proceed immediately to the larynx. What is the function of the larynx? Passage of air and then phonation or production of sounds. Now, you will be able to identify the larynx because of the presence of those skeletal muscles. And then aside from that, the larynx is composed of two projections. So that is one projection or two projections present in the larynx, and then that is the other projection. Now, we will begin with the characterization of the epithelium lining the larynx. Okay, what type of epithelium is shown? Stratified, ciliated columnar epithelium. Okay, the pointed cells are the goblet cells. Okay. The pointed portions are the clear mucin vacuoles of the goblet cells. So their secretions will provide a film of mucus at the surface of the epithelium. Same thing with the neuroepithelium. Wala pa lang, as mentioned a while ago, walang goblet cells in the neuroepithelium. Now, what is the significance of mucus? From the nasal cavity, actually, the nose natin will start from the nasal cavity, will be lined initially at the anterior portion by stratified squamous epithelium, and then eventually at the middle and posterior portions of the nasal cavity, it will be lined already by that type of epithelium. So the mucus secretions will form a film of mucus on top of the cilia. What is the significance of mucus? Prevent desiccation. Aside from that, the more important purpose, okay, it will trap. The mucus will trap any microorganism or dust particles that are suspended in the inspired air. Because actually, under normal conditions, our lungs are sterile. The alveolar sacs do not contain any microorganism because of the defenses present in the respiratory tract. One of them will come in the form of the mucociliary clearance. So, on top of the cilia is a layer of mucus which is responsible for trapping microorganisms and dust particles. And then the cilia will provide the sweeping action, the sweeping movement. So, the movement of the cilia will be towards the pharynx. So, paakyat from the larynx, paakyat to the pharynx, and then eventually, pagdating ng mucus secretions sa pharynx, we are actually regularly and unconsciously swallowing mucus coming from the respiratory tract. So, the purpose of which is to kill the microorganisms that are trapped in the mucus in the gastrointestinal tract. Which particular organ of the digestive system is responsible for the actual killing of microorganisms coming from the respiratory tract? The stomach, because present in the stomach is hydrochloric acid. So that is the significance of the presence of the goblet cells and then the presence of the cilia. Now, that structure is the one responsible for producing sounds. So, pag nag-contract itong muscles na ito, so magpo-push siya ng tawag yan?
Clapping.
Okay, vibration inside the larynx. So, pagdaan ng air sa larynx, pag mayroong vibration, that is how sounds are produced. Now, we will be able to identify that structure aside from being a protrusion. It is actually the true vocal cord. Now, we will be able to identify the true vocal cord because of the type of epithelium lining that protrusion of the larynx. Okay, so that is the ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium. The type of epithelium that will cover the true vocal cord is that type, which is what type of epithelium is that? Okay, sa practical exam, mali pa rin yan. Kulang. Walang non-keratinizing. It is covered by a stratified squamous epithelium. Now, actually, from the nose to the smallest airways, terminal bronchioles, the respiratory tract is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Only the true vocal cords are covered by the stratified squamous epithelium. And then underneath the epithelium are thick bands of elastic fibers. What is the specific name of the elastic fibers? Okay, these elastic fibers will attach this protrusion to the underlying muscles. So they are collectively called as the vocal ligament. And then these muscles, pag mag-contract ito, magpa-fluff ng vocal cords. So these are skeletal muscle fibers.
Trachealis muscle.
They are called collectively as
Trachealis.
the larynx.
Larynx. Sorry.
Their movement will produce sound. That is why they are more commonly called as the vocalis. Vocalis muscle. So, epithelium, and then the tissue immediately underneath the epithelium, it is specifically called the lamina propria. So, present in the lamina propria of the larynx are those glands. So, they are actually called mucous glands because there are two types of acini present. So the acinus pointed is a serous or mucous acinus. That acinus is serous or mucous? Mucous. And then that acinus is serous. What is the specific name of that pointed structure? Which is sitting on top of a mucous acinus. Serous? Okay, very good. Serous Demelunius. So it will show a half moon shape appearance. So seromucous glands in the lamina propria, their secretions will add up to the film of mucus, which is produced by the goblet cells of the epithelium. And then supposedly, the false vocal cord is not lined by stratified squamous epithelium. It should be lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Now, siguro itong larynx na ito comes from an animal. So, because of the lining epithelium, which is not usual for humans. So you will be able to identify and differentiate the false vocal cord from the true vocal cord because of the lining epithelium number one. Unfortunately, that is not the usual lining epithelium. The absence